This is Hannibal and Piper here from the HannibalTV.com. Just in from a walk and going to get into my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. And there is a lot of news this week, actually, particularly in AEW. So I'll jump right into it. By the way, we also air these streams on Facebook at the Hannibal TV, and the live streams on Facebook usually get 10 times the amount of views of YouTube because our live streams on Facebook are ad free. So let's jump into the news. Apparently, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was on Bloomberg on the weekend and said that he has some interest in possibly thinking about buying WWE in the future. He said, quote, "I've known Vince for a very, very long time, and he's a businessman. I think the key, if there were a sale of the WWE, is to make sure that whoever acquires the brand in that property, you've got to love the wrestling business," end quote. Now, The Rock is worth $300 million, but he does have access to other buyers or other potential investors. However, running the WWE is a big job. I don't know if he would actually want that along with everything else he does. That's a huge job. Paul Levesque was not at Raw or NXT this week because he has COVID. Now, some people, and I shouldn't even say this, but some people said I didn't act sad enough that Kevin Nash's son, Tristan, passed away yesterday at age 26. I do feel bad about it, but I'd never seen Tristan or known anything about his son other than hearing that in the past, and it's probably not even the same son, there was some sort of legal arrest due to a fight with the son like many years ago. So I'm sorry if I didn't seem sad enough for everyone. I feel bad for him, but I've met Kevin Nash twice in my life, and people die every day. There's people starving in third world countries. I can't act overly sad over people that I didn't even know existed until yesterday. But apparently he passed away on Scott Hall's birthday, which was also yesterday. So, yes, I feel really bad for Kevin Nash. And God bless his family. Apparently, Bray Wyatt returned to TV last week on SmackDown. Didn't affect the ratings, but he did come out to new music, which in my opinion, I did watch the segment. It wasn't great. And apparently the fans that were live in the building booed when the segment was over. Now, I did do a review of the segment, and the reason they probably booed when it was over was because he's just doing a promo, and then some stuff comes up on the screen, some images come up on the screen, then the promo's over. So it's like, what happens? Does he magically disappear? Because we've seen him vaporize in the past and have the ability to teleport, or did these images scare him away? Did he run away into the crowd? I mean, it's not something I'm interested in. I understand they're geared towards kids, even though most of their audience is older. But I did find it kind of silly that he does this promo, then some pictures show up on the screen, and then what? He's afraid of pictures on a video screen that magically appear as soon as he's done saying what he had to say. I don't know. I could understand why the fans in the building booed, but apparently Dave Meltzer says he did like the segment. Apparently Triple H also did an interview with The Wrap talking about how proud he is of this Bray Wyatt White Rabbit return. And he said, quote, "We asked ourselves, how can we bring back Bray Wyatt in the most engaging way possible? So we created the White Rabbit Project," end quote. So again, I don't know how many new fans that brought, but apparently the Extreme Rules show that he debuted on had 10,500 pay-per-view buys. So those are people that bought it that don't have the WWE Network. Apparently, for the October 28th SmackDown tapings in St. Louis, they're going to tape for both that week and the week after. Due to the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, which, by the way, Logan Paul is headlining against Roman Reigns. Ronda Rousey did say publicly that if she was booking, she would have Logan Paul win that match. I agree. I would also have Logan Paul win that match because people can say he's having a good reign all you want. I don't see the ratings moving that much. Yes, he is the best of the regulars that are doing house shows, because apparently he is doing house shows. He did a house show in Ottawa in August, where I don't think Brock Lesnar is doing house shows. So he is the best for that. But if you had Logan Paul, who is far better known outside of wrestling as the champion, it would get more people talking about WWE. And yeah, if you had Logan Paul on a house show wrestling, all of his fans, wrestling or non-wrestling, would come. So he would probably, at least in a short-term period, draw better than Roman Reigns. However, of course, there is the matter that I don't think you can call a match on the fly yet. But just because wrestling is so predictable and boring these days, I would definitely have Logan Paul win. Roman Reigns is not like a household name. People in wrestling know him. But like, for instance, if I asked my parents who Roman Reigns was, they wouldn't know Roman Reigns. They would know John Cena, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, The Rock, but they would be clueless if I said to my dad. I keep in mind, my dad does somewhat read wrestling articles and stuff, because he still gives me newspaper articles, but I guarantee you my dad, if you asked him right now, called him on the phone and said, who's Roman Reigns, he would have no idea. And most people outside of wrestling wouldn't know, because he hasn't broken into the mainstream yet. And that's just a fact. That could change in the future. He has seemed to have gotten more popular over the years. But Logan Paul is definitely better known and would get them more publicity. Apparently, Brian James, the Road Dogg Jesse James, said Billy Gunn was supposed to be part of the DX reunion, but he wasn't allowed to do it at the last minute. And as I previously said, not only does AEW have Billy Gunn. Sorry, he said Billy Gunn was supposed to do the DX reunion, but couldn't at the last minute. AEW's in competition with WWE. Billy Gunn has a job with AEW. He's had one since the start that pays him very well. And AEW also gave his kids jobs. So I don't blame them for saying, no, we're not going to let you help this other company boost a rating for their season premiere. Doug Masters, how am I? I'm doing great. Just ate a nice lunch. I'm going to go to the gym a little bit after doing this. Apparently, WWE is looking at doing one pay-per-view a year from the UK now, along with their 2 pay-per-views from Saudi Arabia. They're also talking about bringing back the King of the Ring tournament. Apparently, they got rid of it in 2002 because it wasn't drawing enough interest, not enough people were buying it. But now, with Peacock paying them an amount of money where they just need to produce content, it doesn't necessarily have to be great or not. They are thinking of bringing it back. And Jim Johnston, the former WWE music guy, did say this in an interview that we posted on the Hannibal TV last week, that WWE is now, they have so much money, they don't really care all that much about the product. Having a product where people have to buy pay-per-views or buy tens of thousands of tickets to be profitable, because they get the same amount of money no matter what. And I was recently reading like title reigns with Hulk Hogan, The Rock, and Austin. They were averaging like 10,000 people plus, even at house shows. And even Macho Man was getting like 8,000 plus during his prime reign. But now, I mean, if you look at figures, even their TV tapings are getting around the 5,000-6,000 range. So they don't care as much about having to draw anymore. And they're doing far less house shows. They're not doing like 14 house shows a week, sometimes more, because they used to have an A, B, and C team and run almost every night. Now there's like 3 or 4 house shows a week, sometimes less. So yeah, it's a lot less pressure these days. Apparently, the day one pay-per-view that some people reported as being canceled is still scheduled, but WWE is not responding to questions regarding the show. Apparently, with Anderson and Gallows going back to WWE, the reason they didn't re-sign with Impact was because there's been talks about that for a long time, and Anderson apparently held some title in New Japan, and he's now not doing this New Japan show in November where he was supposed to defend the title because he's doing the Crown Jewel show. However, New Japan is still advertising that show that's taking place on November 5th. It's called Battle Autumn 2022. Battle Autumn 2022. There's a great name for you. Bill Goldberg is involved with the relaunch of Speed Vision. He's going to be an advisor and on-air talent. NXT's next pay-per-view is October 22nd, tomorrow, from the Performance Center. They're not doing real arenas still yet. They are, I do think, doing house shows in armories and stuff around Florida, drawing like 100 to 200 people, but they're not like doing real arenas. Apparently, in AEW news, Chris Jericho signed a new contract or an extension on his old contract that reportedly is going to be making $3 million a year, and he'll be under contract with them through January 2026 when he'll be 55. Apparently, Jericho said on his podcast he was the one that pushed Tony Khan to sign Paige. No attendance results from Dynamite in Cincinnati last week for some reason, but the big news out of that was Adam Page got a concussion, which I did watch. He tried to do a flip. He tried to do the old Mr. Perfect thing where you get clothesline and do a backflip, something Jeremy Prophet can do very well, who recently worked for AEW. But he landed wrong and got a concussion. I mean, I've had countless concussions. You see them all the time in MMA. You see people get knocked out in MMA, and it's no big deal. But in wrestling, they now make a huge deal about concussions. It sucks. But like, I remember when wrestlers were supposed to be like the toughest guys on the planet, they wouldn't make such a big deal about something that happens all the time. So to me, that they made a huge deal about this guy getting a concussion when it turns out it looks like he's going to be fine in the end. Like, I don't know if it makes wrestlers look tough anymore. I don't think wrestlers have to be tough anymore necessarily. But in the old days, part of the allure was they were like superhuman, the toughest on the planet. But in MMA, you see a guy knocked out and then you never hear anything else about him. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. I'm just saying that I watched the concussion incident and it didn't like actually look that bad. I'm sure he got his bell rung. I'm sure he got a concussion, just like I've had countless concussions. But it seemed like they made a huge deal about it, even though it turns out he's going to be fine. Ace Steel, who was involved in this post-all-out fight, was released on October 17th. Apparently, AEW is likely not going to bring CM Punk back. There's talks about buying out his contract, but the issue about buying out his contract is they want a no-compete clause in it, so he can't just show up in WWE. Apparently, there's a very anti-CM Punk sentiment backstage in AEW because he's said some negative things about Adam Page, who apparently is well-liked in the dressing room. Nothing new about the Young Bucks, but from what I understand, Punk and the Young Bucks are all still being paid. Apparently, there's going to be a backstage reality show in AEW that's going to be recorded starting in November, recorded from November 2nd to December 14th. Tony Khan is going to be producing that, and it's going to be made for Warner Brothers, as well as Tony Khan's father's company. Apparently, they're coming back to Los Angeles on January 11th. And Dave Meltzer brings out, whereas they sold out very quickly last time they went to LA, they're not as hot a product now, and they might have some problems filling the LA Forum. Apparently, there's some notes regarding AEW's debut in Toronto. Apparently, WWE is coming to that same arena in December, which is interesting. WWE is now running, and they've been doing this for a while, other than for TV tapings, like the small arena in Toronto. This is the junior hockey arena. It's not the Air Canada Center. It like holds like a maximum of, I don't even know if it quite holds 7,000 or around 7,000. But apparently WWE is coming there in December, and their advertising was listed above AEW's, the week of AEW's shows in Toronto. Apparently, there was only 2 merchandise stands at these shows, and they sold out of all the popular wrestlers' merchandise the first night. Only had the lower card guy the second night. That reminds me when WCW came to Montreal in '96, there was like 15,000 people at the show, and they had no merchandise stands, which was a huge mistake. I remember everyone wanted to buy WCW merchandise, and they weren't selling any. They weren't even selling programs. Dynamite did a 0.26 rating this week, head-to-head with NXT. They beat NXT with a stacked card, including Kevin Owens and Nakamura. NXT did a 0.18. Raw did a 0.5 rating from Oklahoma City before 5,700 paid fans. Rampage from Toronto, where Jeremy Prophet was seen as one of Nyla Rose's security guards. The 0.17 rating. Is Nyla, did she ever get popular? I remember there was a big hoopla when they first introduced that character, but I haven't heard much about that character. I don't know if the popularity increased or it just went stale. SmackDown featuring Bray Wyatt's return did a 0.54 rating and had 5,800 paid. So he certainly, if you compare it to CM Punk's return in Chicago that sold out the United Center, Bray Wyatt's return only had 5,800 paid for the SmackDown. In Impact news, their Bound for Glory top pay-per-view only did 1,840 pay-per-view buys on television. Apparently that was better than the 1,260 they had for Slammiversary in June. Are we really calling this a major company now when their pay-per-views are getting less than 2,000 buys? Humberto Garza Sr. passed away on my birthday, October 16th at age 85. By the way, Kenny Omega and Justin Credible, I think, have the same birthday as me. Humberto Garza is the grandfather of Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza. Jose Rivera of Puerto Rico also passed away this week. That is not the one that was one of the conquistadors. It was an older one. In Pro Wrestling Noah Japan news, the Great Muda's last match in Fukuoka, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, only drew 1,199 fans to the International Arena on October 16th. AAA had 14,500 announced for their Triple Mania show October 15th. Some reports indicate there was somewhere between 9,000 to 14,000. And there was question on some reports whether the top levels were actually full or not. Apparently, GCW, the death match promotion, might be working with the WWE in some capacity. Dana White is looking to possibly have John Jones versus Stipe Miocic for the December 10th pay-per-view. That could be interesting. Apparently, Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta, who worked together in the past ownership of UFC, are starting a power slap league. And speaking of concussions, I don't know. I just can't get into this power slap league and how commissions can actually sanction people just taking slaps to the face when you're not allowed to protect yourself. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I find MMA and boxing interesting because by watching it, you can actually get some fighting tips and learn some fighting techniques. Oh, I think I'm going to have to go here soon because I have a visitor. Apparently, UFC owner Dana White, or UFC president, sorry, he's no longer the owner, is also looking at starting a hockey fighting league. And I have a visitor, so I got to go. I'll answer sorry I can't get to your questions today, but I'll answer your guys' questions next time I do an update. Bye. Have a great weekend from Piper and I. And sorry again, I'll answer your questions next time. And sorry to Kevin Nash about the loss of your son.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not